We are back, everyone, for another installment of AFF CNY's pre-conference interview series. I am Shemin Vizzi. We are getting very close to the start of this year's conference. So let's go right into another workshop presenter and see what they're going to be sharing next week. Welcome, everyone, and let's take a look at our next workshop presenter. Brooke, why don't you take a second, introduce who you are, and then tell everybody how you're connected to adoption or foster care for everyone in the community to know.
Okay. I am Brooke Randolph. I am a licensed mental health counselor in Indiana and Massachusetts, and a licensed professional clinical counselor supervisor in Kentucky. That one's new, so it doesn't roll off my tongue as fast. But I am a therapist, author, speaker, and trainer. I really focus on promoting excellence in adoption therapy and openness in adoption. Um, I, I mean, the one that people always want at conferences like this is that my big connection is that I'm an adoptive parent. I think that came later. I was a therapist specializing in adoption, and working in an agency back in the day. Um, and I have a teenager right now, and we have an open international adoption.
What I want to ask you a couple of questions about. So some of the things in your bio, because your bio will be up there for everyone to read. And I want to ask you, how did you get to write a book about, I like the first one's called The Bully Book.
Mhm.
What led you to that? What led you to write something like that? Or is that something that was, were you
So
always a writer? Was this something that you always did, or it just found you?
that was something that I had originally created just working with a child, one-on-one on something he was working on. And then years later, I came across kind of like the file on my computer of where I'd made all the not worksheets, but I made all the things for him. And at that time was had been hearing lots of things about like always reuse your work, and you should have downloadable items. And so I asked Laura Dennis, who I knew from another project, and said, um, I I have this thing, and I think it's probably just a PDF to put on my website, but should I make it like a digital book, like a Kindle? But I don't even know that we use Kindle terms back then. But I was like, but should I make it a digital book? What should I do with it? And she was like, no, that's a book. I'm going to publish it for you, and you're going to write a series. And I was like, okay. So it wasn't really an intention, these like kids' workbooks. Just I do believe in narrative, especially helping children process that way. And so that was um, just kind of how it developed.
Very interesting. I like to ask some things about people's bios. So you specialize in many things, but one of them is adoption therapy and developmental trauma. Why do you feel this is something that's important for families to know? It's very hard to find adoption competent therapists, let's just be honest. What made you decide that this was something important for you to get into, since it's so specialized? I mean, you said you started off with an agency, but then was that something you did at the agency, or was that something that traveled with you and kind of
So
developed into?
really, I had started specializing kind of before I'd started graduate school. And so as I went into graduate school, that was all my research and my papers. And at that point, I was focusing primarily on birth mother grief and that complication. So that was what I was working a lot on in undergrad. And then as I um, was starting out my career, I was working in a community mental health center, and then I was offered this job to help start an adoption agency. And so I was going to lots of conferences and kept hearing, we went to the therapist and they made it worse. We kept hearing from all the parents and the adoptees about this lack of adoption competent therapists. And I like, this is where I need to be. So I was doing therapy part-time and working in an agency full-time, and and just worked on changing that until I was full-time as a therapist. And now I lead a group of therapists and provide consultation. So hopefully we can really spread positive adoption therapy to as many people as possible.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Let me just ask you. So, what I have as your title of your workshop is Brain Spotting Power Therapy for the Adoption Constellation. Can you give us, I know you're going to get really in depth next week, but give us a little snippet. What is brain spotting?
So brain spotting is just a therapeutic technique. And in fact, as if I was speaking to therapists, I would say it is as much a way of being as it is a technique. Um, and so that's what I would encourage any professionals who want to come to learn to kind of think about that way of being and how that is healing in and of itself. Um, but also like this is just one technique that we use to help individuals process, to that we can deal with both current things and a lot of past traumas, including implicit traumas or things that people don't remember, because we know that what's stored in the brain is stored in the body. And we can make that brain body connection to help us process even things that we don't have a narrative memory of.
Hmm. Is there anything that I've left out that you would like to mention to anyone who sees this, of maybe reasons why everyone should come and see you at our workshop, at your workshop next week?
Yeah, I love being able to give this introduction to brain spotting at conferences because I get the opportunity to speak to parents, to individuals, and to professionals. And I can kind of answer the questions for everybody. So I get to give the introduction on what is brain spotting, and then why do I think that this is so ideal for the adoption constellation. And there are just these foundational principles to brain spotting that really make it something that I think is essential. I think those components are essential for good adoption therapy, and they are taught as a part of brain spotting. And so I think it's interesting to people. It's something they may not have heard of before. And then I just love being able to answer questions for everybody, whether it's the therapist who's wanting to be trained or to wanting to go deeper in how they use it with their clients, or the people who are thinking like, is this for me? Or how could this benefit me?